As the WWE is building up momentum for its biggest show of the year and building towards its really biggest show of the year, as we go into WrestleMania season, AEW is trying to do the different than approach. And last night on Dynamite, their different than approach was, we're going to be bad. This was terrible. This was absolutely terrible last night from AEW Dynamite. It was a quiet crowd. It was a very cold show. It was just it was bad. There's no other way of saying it. This was a bad wrestling program. And I understand you start shit talking AEW and some people can get their hackles up a little bit. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'm willing to listen. I want AEW to be good, right? I want AEW to be the alternative and all of those things. Not just because, you want a good spot for other wrestlers to go. I just want there to be interesting options to watch. When AEW was going, when they first get started, and you got WWE, who, it's not great, but it's still, when WWE, even when they were bad, when it gets going good, it's still really good, right? And the matches would be incredible and all those different things, right? There was a lot that you could get really excited about with WWE. And AEW, it's this new thing, and you got these crazy matches, and it's all this stuff. And New Japan is firing on all cylinders. When all of that was going, God, it's fun to watch. And right now, very little of that is happening. New Japan is trying, and AEW is trying. And honestly, TNA is creeping up there a little bit. There's a lot of trying going on right now. Toxic saying, I feel like wrestling has been bad in 2025. Or maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. I don't think it's that, because it's weird because WWE is at such a run right now. But that being said, to your point, SmackDown has been bad more than it's been good so far this year. I would say Dynamite has been good more than it's been bad, but I think this week really canceled all that off. And I think the Netflix show, it had a pacing issue. And so from that standpoint, I can see where you thought that it was bad. But overall, I think Raw's been very, very good this year. And I think NXT is kind of clicking as well. We definitely need to get more NXT content on here. So I don't think wrestling this year is bad. I don't think it's been what we want it to be. And I don't think it's been where it can be. And so that is the frustrating aspect of it. But Toxic, I'm glad you're here hanging out still. I felt like Dynamite last night, and I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it yet. I felt like Dynamite last night was like our WWE 2K24 My GM streams, where either the other brands have cut it off, so hey, you're not allowed to use these guys this week, or we've just had a couple of big shows and everyone's stamina's down, or there's some kind of the commissioner note, or there is some reason why, and then we put the show together and it's well, that's a show. It's not a great one, but it's a show. We just need to get something out there and just keep it rolling. That's what this felt like last night from a international television brand. That's not great. I can do that on a video game because it's not my job. I mean, content creation, all that, but it's not my job to make a great wrestling show. It's their job to do that. And to put out what they put out last night was dreadful. I thought they were building up some momentum. Things were starting to fall into place. It's just not now. And they're trying to explain things, but they're explaining it in the wrong way with the wrong guys. So a couple of the things that I didn't like. The crowd was dead for basically the whole show. They got amped up for Will Ospreay, and he comes out and the crowd is going. And I've seen the clips today with Eric Bischoff saying, well, how can Will Ospreay say he's the best wrestler in the world? He's not a draw. And on one hand, I understand that entirely. On the other hand, I don't think he's being put in the spot I don't think anything that's happening right now is his fault. I think that it's very much Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen right now. He is an otherworld talent that is not being put in the best spots to succeed, that it can make an appreciable difference on these shows. You could argue that if he is the best wrestler in the world, that should be enough, and they should be selling more than fucking 1,000 tickets per show. But he starts the night off, and the crowd is going nuts for him. And then they get beaten down, and from that point on, no one gives a shit. Everyone, I think, and again, you can say, well, if everyone's there to see Will Ospreay, more people should be there then if he is that good, and I will hear that. But I think everyone was there basically to see Will Ospreay. And then after that, no one really cared. It was really quiet for that main event with Mercedes Moné. And we've talked about it before. Mercedes is on a run right now with some great matches, but it's a bit of a cold one with Sakazaki. It's a character that pops in and out every now and then. And like, you just don't have this investment in this match. And so it's a fine match. No one cares. And it was dead. And it's not like it was a bad wrestling market. Like, I think Huntsville, Alabama has had their fair share of wrestling shows before, and the crowds have been pretty good for it. They just didn't have anything on this show to be good about. So that there was just, the crowd being dead was the big one. And like I said, you need to do some storytelling things. You can't just have Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega be awesome every week, but they do it at the beginning of the show. The crowd is there for those guys, and it's a beatdown. And so, again, you have to establish that the Callis family is what they are, and they're these dominant guys, and that's what it's going to be to create some intrigue going into their tag team match in a couple of weeks at Grand Slam. But it just felt like these are your two most over guys right now, and you beat them down, they don't get anything back, and so the crowd doesn't really get anything to get all that excited about. And like I said, it just felt like it was the air coming out of the balloon with that one. Then, as we go on, and if you've watched my stuff the last couple of weeks, you know where I'm going. And it was all over X, and it was all over anywhere anyone was talking about this show. How in the blue hell does Claudio need interference to beat Jeff Jarrett? And we said, you better not beat Claudio with Jeff Jarrett. Don't do it. And this is the problem with this story is, you know what? Jeff Jarrett was great friends with Owen. All right, let's have a good run in the Owen Hart Cup. All right, let's get behind him. Really with this guy. All right, he's an underdog. He's old. He's been around for a long time. We can get behind this guy. Let's go, Jeff Jarrett. And he's pushing forward, and he's getting these chances. He's coming out, and he's defending people, and he's getting into Hangman Page's face. We're like, all right, that's our guy, Jeff Jarrett. And then he comes out and he says, I won a world title in 2025. And we're like, okay, you know what? It's good to have goals. So give it one more run there, that last outlaw. And then he says, I was MJF before MJF, and I did it better. It's like, well, I mean, the King of the Mountain gimmick in TNA was kind of shitty, and the Chosen One in WCW was part of the creative that sent that show into a death spiral. But okay, you talked well, I guess. Pretty good character. And so I'm gonna face Claudio for a chance at the world title. It's like, well, I don't want you to beat him. I guess, but maybe you could. Well, no, I don't want him to beat MJF. I don't want him to beat anyone. Hey, what are we doing here? And so you just, on the surface, Jeff Jarrett going for one last run is a fun little like, yeah, okay, cool. But then you put it in to any part of the show, and I don't want him to win. I don't want him to beat Claudio. I don't want him to beat MJF. I don't want him to get his comeuppance on anything. I kind of just like, I don't know what you do with him. And so they've talked it in. And one thing I noticed on commentary this week is that Excalibur said Jeff Jarrett wants one more, wants to finish his career. And the one thing that'll get it is the AEW World or a World Championship to finish that off. And I was like, oh, that was a slip on, not on purpose, but that was a slip that I think was telling. I think that they're building this like AEW whatever. I kind of think that their plan now is to pivot. And I think this world title run that Jeff Jarrett's going to go on, I kind of think it might be over there for the Ring of Honor one. It was a weird stumble from Excalibur, whereas the AEW champion, a world championship. It's like, I think there was something with that one. So maybe it's me reading too much into it. But the Jeff Jarrett story, I've always kind of liked Jeff Jarrett. I always thought he got maybe a bit too much flack for some things that were kind of out of his control and all of that. But I also don't want him in my world title picture in 2025 when you have all this amazing talent on the show. And Claudio, it shouldn't take all that interference to beat Jeff Jarrett or anything like that. Like that, I think you could honestly have told that story the same way if Claudio went out and beat the piss out of him, and Jeff Jarrett's like, man, maybe I don't have it, and you get this inspirational buildup of whatever. I don't think that if you're gonna do this, it should almost be like a guy got hot at the right time, and look at that, he has this opportunity, and he just happened to win the right things. Not Jeff Jarrett is capable of beating anyone on this roster, and that thus he is the world champion. That shouldn't be how it should be done here with a 57-year-old on your television screen. Although that would make him only a little bit older than some of the guys who are in the main event picture. And again, we get Moxley promo, and they're saying, why haven't we seen the title in a while? And it's like, the world title isn't here, it's forged in combat, and it's all these different things. And I love this Moxley character. I do. And I know that's not a thing that a lot of people are saying right now. I do really like the idea of Moxley leading this. Like I said, like he is, and the comparisons you can make, like it's the obvious muscle enhancing shirts, but the kind of like not turtleneck, but just long sleeves or whatever, and all of that, and the almost bordering on army gear, and just kind of running everything amok and all of that. It kind of feels like, and I don't mind if they try this, like Bane and all of his guys trying to take over Gotham. And you don't know when they're going to attack. You don't know from where, and all of that. And I think you kind of got that image early on when they're attacking Darby Allin and they're attacking Jay White, and it's all these different things and it's all this different stuff. And that, okay, fine. We're fighting for the heart of AEW. Cool. You got the title. And it stayed there. It has stayed there. Nothing has progressed with this thing. And now they're trying to make excuses for why. You don't need to see the title. The title isn't here. It's in my soul. It's like, well, I feel like this thing that is supposed to be the emblem of AEW, if you want to not put it on TV, I think there's a way you can do it, where you tell the story that I hate what AEW has turned into, and so people don't get to see that symbol of AEW excellence until this company is, in my vision, until this company is in the way that I think that it should be. And you don't get to see that because that should represent excellence. That should represent greatness that is forged in combat, in professional wrestling, what AEW is supposed to be. And these performers don't have the right to have that symbol of excellence be shown on a night in, night out basis. They have to get better and earn their opportunity to even see the fucking thing before they get a chance at it. I think there's a way you could do that instead of just like, yeah, I don't fucking feel like it, man. Piss off. And then, as we've said for weeks, Copeland being the one to come out and try to run these guys off. Again, there's a story you can tell. He's cut heartfelt promo after heartfelt promo about why AEW is so important. We need another one of those. We need to know why at this time that guy is fighting for the heart of AEW. Instead, it just feels like a regular championship feud. And so instead of it feeling like this real battle for AEW's soul, you just got a bunch of guys who are interfering in every goddamn match and winning a whole lot and beating everyone down week after week after week. And the guy who's going for the title is just like, yeah, I want the title. So if you could stop beating everyone up, that'd be nice. But ultimately, I just want the championship. Like it takes it a step down. And so it's felt like we haven't had any progression for months now because that's the direction that they have gone with this match. And it just has grinded everything down to a halt. And so instead of it feeling like there is this kind of like, like the villains are attacking Gotham and now they've taken over the courthouse and Batman is walking out on thin ice to see if he can still live and all those things. It's just, yeah, the bad guys won again. Well, the good guys coming to save him? I mean, kinda. Like the good guys, like they want the bad guys to not exist anymore, but that's just because they're blocking their way to the grocery store instead of saving the heart of Gotham. Like it's a wrestling story, but it's not a great one. And it doesn't tie in with everything that is happening right now. And so that is why it just gets so frustrating and just feels like it is such a stale product right now. And I understand the reasoning behind it kind of, is that you are waiting for Ospreay and Omega to be built up to be able to take it at like an all-in or something along those lines, right? But this is one of the things we've talked about before with WWE. And I mean, their storytelling is miles beyond anything in AEW right now. But with WWE, they fell into the trap a little bit where okay, this is big, so it has to happen at WrestleMania. So, all right, this guy's going to get his big win at WrestleMania. And now this title's going to change at WrestleMania. And this guy's on a good run. We can't take it off of him until WrestleMania. And so every show leading up to it, while entertaining, it feels like it is second rate because nothing big is going to happen. And so we're just in this holding pattern where no one thinks Edge is going to beat Copeland is going to beat Moxley for the AEW championship. And so we're just getting a title feud to have a title feud that isn't going to advance anything anywhere, to wait for the good guys to get past this one thing before they can get to this other thing. And I am not doubting that Ospreay or Omega or both against Moxley in the main event of All in front of 8,000 people in a stadium that can hold 60 isn't going to be an amazing match. But it just feels like to get there, we are sacrificing week after week after week and character after character after character. You're telling me that Jay White can't even get anything over on Wheeler Yuta to the point where he's getting beaten down. Like, Wheeler Yuta, I understand you want to keep everyone in this strong and everyone in this whatever. Someone should be able to hit a finisher on these guys at some point. But every week, it's just these guys getting beaten down. And I get that that is kind of what everyone thought the NWO thing really was about. And, oh, well, they just got these cool heels and now they turned into baby faces. Well, people were actually invested in those stories. And then we got invested in a Sting to really get into it. We're not, like, we, the viewer, are assuming that Ospreay and Omega are going to be those guys, but they're not fighting for that right now. They're not telling us that. So we don't have anything to latch onto. We're just watching these characters that we're not invested in, that we don't like, that we're kind of sick of, which is fucking insane because they're some of the best performers in the world in Pac, in Claudio, in Moxley. Marina Shafir, she hasn't performed in a while, and I wouldn't put her on that caliber, but vibes-wise, elite, phenomenal. Perfect fit for this. Just standing in the background, being huge and terrifying, working to perfection. And Wheeler Yuta's there. And they, like, you have all these great performers, and I don't care about them at all. I groan when they come on my television. That is not where this should be. They are trying to be the NWO, and they're turning into the House of Torture in the worst ways possible. And it just sucks the life out of this television show in just awful ways. But Swerve and Ricochet was good. So you had that. It's just, it's bad right now. And this show was so terrible. And it was dead. And it was so predictable. And nothing about it was entertaining or whatever. It didn't even feel like a placeholder. It felt like Rampage. You know, like it just felt like, here are some matches. We're going to pretend there's some storyline advancement. And we're going to go on that way. So here, I ran through AEW and what I don't like. I know AEW fans can get a little mad. Rightfully so sometimes. I think it's a little much. Like I said, I think a lot of the Eric Bischoff stuff has gone a little overboard, and he is just in that fight now and can't really see a lot of the forest for the trees. There's a lot of stuff that I think he's right about, but I do think some of that gets a little excessive. And so I do want to, let's end on a positives. The Tony Storm turn, I think, was excellent. And a lot of people are criticizing it being unannounced on Collision. I do think that you have to make Collision at least a little bit must-see. Have at least a little bit of stuff on there that's of impact. That you can, like, okay, maybe I do need to tune into this thing on a Saturday night now that college football season is done and NFL season, there's no more Saturdays there. Maybe that's something we need to start to pay attention to. And so I do think you need to have more impactful stories that happen over there instead of just Deonna Purrazzo and Taya Valkyrie coming on and saying, well, I think we should be in the TBS match, not Uka Sakazaki. And anyone who doesn't watch Collision, which is most people, are like, why? Anyway, I've now gone negative again. The Tony Storm stuff is fantastic. And that turn, I thought it was such a great way to do that. And even if there's a couple of cheesy things about it, I think it was excellent. Will Ospreay is a very talented performer, and it's awesome that we get to see him every week. And the Swerve Ricochet stuff is very well thought out, and everyone's motivations are very clear and obvious, and it fits their characters perfectly. So those are the good things. The bad stuff is just everything else with AEW.